What exactly is data activation? I mean, again, people who are been in this industry or familiar with this, please forgive me, if I'm stating the obvious, but it's again a new concept, or rather, I would say it's been there forever, but at the same time, it's getting a lot more traction these days, right? I think it's basically when you have insights, data insights, we at the end of the day, we consume data, we consume information for a business need, either to take a decision or take an action and all that. So data activation kind of helps you, with the last step, which is basically how do you convert these information or insights, to take an action. Say, for example, in the previous question I had, hey, it's like there are 110 orders, for furniture in California. So what do I do with this? It's not that people stare at these numbers and then feel good about it. There is something which we need to do. Maybe what it is doing well. I may want to increase, do some actions. Say, for example, maybe if this is very less, 110 is extremely less, or rather, it does not help me, meet some of those targets. Perhaps I may run a different campaign to promote this, right? Or I mean, you can even turn it down to say, for example, there are so many days in which there were no orders. Perhaps that requires an action, right? So that is precisely is what data activation is about. Now, having this information at our disposal, right? What do we really do, and how do we seamlessly do that, from an application? I think that's exactly what I'm just going to talk about. One is a data activation. As I said, it helps. It's a I mean, they call it as unlocking the value. It's basically how does it really help, to take actions. But the second part of this question is also how does an application like what I just showed you, Kia, how does our platform help you achieve that, right? So we'll just talk about both these, right? So if you look at any of the modern day data stack, this is the way, it's like there are four major steps. I mean, the data acquisition from where, from all the sources systems through which we get that. There is this data integration layer where we combine these. It could be from files, it could be from this transactional data versus customer data, billing data, orders. We just kind of try to merge them together and then do the transformations which are required for the reporting layer, build the enterprise data warehouse, and from there the data is consumed, in whatever BI tools or reporting tools, we make use of, right? I think it's a very, very common, absolutely, nothing magical about this. It's a very common data stack in any implementation today, right? So within this, where exactly does data activation fit in, right? So it's basically how do you take this warehouse, I mean, data, and then make it actionable, right? It's basically, as I said, if my the input from this warehouse, gives me this information, how do I consume this 110 or this 12.2 per, the delta of 12.2, increase? What do I really do with that? How do I really tie this to a business, action? That's exactly what data activation is about. It's basically not just consuming the information. How do we even make this actionable, right? So it's the third part, as I said. So focus on, it's like not, I mean, focus from, just shifting from simply understanding to taking an action on it, right? It could be like, say, for example, I may want to run from with these orders or with these products or with these customers. I may want to run a campaign. So I may want to integrate this within my CRM application, right? Or I may want to assign this as a task to somebody. Maybe, this is an information, which is useful for my regional sales manager. So he may want to act on it, right? So how do we tie the last part of action is what, the whole data activation layer is about, right? So like I've just tried to put that in the picture. If you take the previous data stack information, right? So you have these, the insights, the numbers, right? How do you now tie this back for typical business functions? It could be like quality management, finance and ERP, marketing, or anything. It could even be, say, for example, maybe if you're looking at the, say, even if it is a simple piece of defects, you may want to take an action on it. How do we really assign to an RC and assign this to somebody? Right? All of these, whatever you see there, like the 5 examples I've given, these are all like examples of how the data could be used for the business functions, different business functions, right? One key element of data activation is, at the end of the day, right, every insight, this is basically, when you're really looking at a number, say for example, even in this, going back to this example, whether it is the order count of 110 or the changing order, which is the delta, which is like gone up by 12.2%. All these are basically customer attributes or business attributes which require some attention. It could be like the recent signups. Maybe I can ask a question on, hey, how many new customers did we sign up last week, right? So if it is this number, for this, maybe, the 10 signups, I may want to take an action of, hey, what, let's send them a follow-up email, or maybe, let's just send them a coupon, let's send them a promotional email, right? The items in cart. Someone was, trying to place an order, and then, they just left in the cart and no action has been taken. What do we do? So we just take that, say, the shopping cart information at any point in time, send an email reminder, hey, what, have left these two items, do you want to complete the transaction? All these numbers, whether it is the items in cart, this number of signups, I mean, I've just given quite a bit of examples there. All of these are again numbers which which come as an output from your BI, whether it is the answer which you got, I just showed, or, it is the dashboard BI, wherever it is, right? These numbers are the ones, which really drive that action based on, what you really want to do with it. It's right. I think that's the whole point about it. At the end of the day, right, when you have a question that is answered, now you really want to take some actions and then tie it to the business application. So here are a few examples. Say for example, if you are talking about sales, I mean, going back to that example, in terms of 110 orders, what do I really want to do? What maybe you can use these insights to do promotion.